And out front tonight, Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Reince, thanks so much for being with us tonight. I know you're doing this on very little sleep, if any. We're told you've spoken to Trump about a position in his administration. How did that conversation go?
No, that's not the case. We don't, I'm not involved in that. Nobody's talking about those things. And so our focus right now is just making sure we're wrapping up the committee work and then, making sure that the transition goes smoothly and so that he can be well equipped come January, and he will be.
Now, Donald Trump does give you a lot of credit for his win. At that moment, when the world was watching him give his victory speech, he talked about you. Here's what he said.
I'll tell you, Reince is really a star, and he is the hardest working guy.
We understand, and I know you're saying you haven't talked about it with him, but you're on the list. Steve Bannon is on the list for Trump's chief of staff. If offered, would you take that job? Do you even want it?
I don't want to even talk about it. I mean, the truth is, I'm in my job right now, Aaron. I mean, I'm the chairman of the RNC. It's an important role that we play at the National Party. You saw it in action on Tuesday night, and it was a great victory. But those great victories only happen with a great candidate. You can have, I'm proud of our mechanics and data, and I think it is unprecedented. I think it's unbelievable what this committee did. But none of those unbelievable things work if you have a bad candidate. So it always starts with a great candidate. And the other thing it starts with is that you have to have a candidate that's flowing with the river. In other words, the momentum, the mood of the electorate has to flow with the candidate. All those things lined up, which is why, I think the media narrative was just so far off on what Americans were thinking about the choices they had in front of them.
President Obama and President-elect Trump were supposed to meet today for 10 minutes. As you know, that was the schedule. Were you surprised after all the, and let's just be honest here, frankly, horrible things that they have said about each other, that meeting lasted an hour and a half?
No, I'm not surprised, and I'll tell you why. Because I've seen President-elect Trump in meetings, one-on-one, intense meetings, and meetings where things needed to be patched up or people needed to get to know each other. He didn't get to be where he's at. Even if you put aside the fact that he did something phenomenal, now he's President-elect of the United States, in his business dealings, I guarantee you there's all kinds of problems that he's dealt with. Blowout arguments over permits or building, whatever the case is, but he will walk into that meeting and people will leave the meeting and they will say, this is a gracious, personable guy. He's a hard guy not to like, especially in meetings like that.
Do you know
so I'm not surprised.
Do you know what they talked about? Have you had a chance to talk to Donald Trump about it?
I talked to him briefly today when he swung through the RNC, but obviously I wasn't downloading on details with him, but I'm sure it was very positive, and the reports are indicative of that.
Bernie Sanders today talked about Donald Trump on CNN, Reince, and I wanted to play for you part of what he said. Here he is.
Sure.
The election is over. Donald Trump won. I intend to work with President Trump. I will vigorously oppose him if he appeals to racism or sexism or some of the other discriminatory measures that he brought up during his campaign.
Reince, you've seen the protests. They are out there again on the streets tonight protesting against Trump's presidency. Does he feel that he should reach out to these people explicitly and assuage their fears?
Well, Aaron, yesterday morning, keep in mind, Donald Trump spoke to the American people just yesterday morning. And when he was getting ready for that speech, it was nothing about bragging about the election, nothing about continuing the rhetoric, the political rhetoric that was indicative of a political campaign. It was all about coming together, leading all Americans, no matter background, race, ethnicity, whatever the gender, whatever the case is. And it was Donald Trump that led. And it was him that decided this is the direction to go. Let's bring people together. Let's cool the water.
So this is how he's going to be from now on.
That's what he did. It wasn't a speechwriter, Aaron, that said, oh, read this speech. And he says, okay, great, put it on the top. No, he sat down and made sure that it was the right speech at the right time. And it was just yesterday morning. Him sitting down for 90 minutes with the president is another indicator. People should look at that and say, here is a person that just won the presidency, and he's sitting down and having a 90-minute conversation, which should have been 10, with the president. He's working hard, and he's showing the country that we need to move together forward. But I would say the agenda that Americans were in favor of was an agenda that the Republican Party, meaning our candidates, including President-elect Trump, House and Senate candidates, put on the table. So the other part of this is we have an obligation then to pursue the promises that we made in a campaign that people voted for. They voted and said, yes, we want those things to be done in Washington. So those things will be done. We don't have a mandate to water down our promises. We have a mandate to perform the things that we promised.
So a wall,
banning
banning Muslim immigration from certain countries, those all fall under the category of promises he made that he will keep?
No, but that's not the promises. No, but that's not the position that he laid out. This has now been since June that he gave that speech, I believe, to either American Legion or the VFW. In June, he said his position is if a country is harboring terrorists and they're a risk to the security of the United States, that he would take measures to temporarily suspend those immigration visas until a better vetting system is in place. That's consistent with many bills in the House and the Senate, and it's what Donald Trump's position is. And so if the media wants to go back now, not you particularly, Aaron, but if the media now wants to go back and stir the pot and now claim that he wants this Muslim ban when he's made it clear himself through 3 debates since June that that's not his position. So it would do us all a big favor if the media would get their act together and quit stirring the pot and creating conflict where it shouldn't exist.
Right, but I mean, you know, he did say it originally, right? No one's going to deny that.
Well,
he
yeah,
said,
okay,
I, Donald
originally.
Trump, right? But then he said it's going
Right.
to be certain countries, right? Then it's countries that harbor terrorists. What are those countries? How is that? Is that nothing to do with being Muslim at all? I mean, he's got to iron out very completely what he meant,
test.
right? Because he made it
Listen,
very
Aaron,
clearly about religion.
He said repeatedly that there's no religious test. And for you all to be coming back and relitigating something that is now that's 5 months old is what the problem is in our country. The problem is we've got to fill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of cable stations that create these issues that don't exist and then turn people against each other. If the media is so interested in America coming together, then they ought to do their job and quit stirring the pot where it shouldn't belong.
Do you think, Reince, that he also carries an obligation? You know, you have Muslims in this country who are worried. They are afraid. They're afraid of what will happen to them. They're afraid of whether they'll be kicked out.
But
you have
Aaron,
Muslims in other countries who are afraid they can't come to this country. I've talked to CEOs in other countries who are Muslim who are worried about this. Isn't some of this on Donald Trump to come out and say, you know what, I didn't mean what I said, and here's what I mean? To be very clear, just to be the sort of leader that you're saying he wants to be, someone who promotes unity and no longer believes in that policy?
I think you're very good, but I'm very surprised that this is the conversation we're having. Yesterday morning, think about yesterday morning, he just gave a speech about Americans coming together. And you're asking me now on Thursday whether he needs to do another. I mean, I'm not sure what you're asking for. He's a president for all Americans. He's made that very clear. We're making it clear. And to go back to, you know, old issues when they have been asked over and over again and has been answered by President-elect Trump, people need to understand that he understands. I promise you, I know where his head and heart's at, and he's said it, so just trust his own words. He will be a president for all Americans, Republicans, Democrats, independents, any religion, any faith. He is your president, and he's going to do a fantastic job, and he understands the gravity and the seriousness of the position.
All right, Reince Priebus, thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Aaron.